Mangwana ni mwalelepo vukenja ni class wanave Africa. Welcome to Africa Good Morning, the news and current affairs show bringing you everything you need to know happening in the SADC region and beyond. Today is a Thursday, and as usual, you are joined by Ashwin Bedi and Aina Raizakweyo.
Happy Thursday, everybody. Today is a World Humanitarian Day. Every year, thousands of men and women all over the world put their lives in danger working in humanitarian causes, working in the most poverty and illness-stricken third world countries all over the world. Often in areas of great social violence, these dedicated heroes and heroines put their lives on the line and sometimes lose them in pursuit of their goals. And here is more on World Humanitarian Day. Welcome back to Africa Good Morning, and here are the news making headlines. SADC summit begins in Malawi with concerns over COVID-19 vaccine hoarding. Malawi President Lazarus Chakwera has urged Southern African leaders to increase efforts to combat the coronavirus pandemic and called on wealthy nations to stop hoarding the vaccine. Statistics shows that less than 2% of African population is fully vaccinated. That is low compared with the rest of the world. Chakwera blamed it on inequalities and disparities in the distribution and production of COVID-19 vaccine. He said it is symptomatic of an old geopolitical framework that regards some human lives as more worthy of saving than others. Chakwera said that thinking would make it difficult for the region to reach herd immunity and reduce high infection rates.
In our second story, Hakainde Hichilema, the Zambian cattle boy who became president. It was a case of sixth-time lucky for Hakainde Hichilema, who has finally become president of Zambia after 5 unsuccessful attempts. Mr. Hichilema, 59, has described himself as an ordinary cattle boy who herded his family's livestock in his youth before going on to become one of Zambia's richest men. He was born into humble beginnings before managing to get a scholarship to the University of Zambia and later graduated with an MBA degree from the University of Birmingham in the UK. He went on to make a fortune in finance, property, ranching, healthcare, and tourism. He has used both aspects of his background to appeal to voters. He told voters that they needed a successful businessman to understand how to get the economy moving in the copper-rich nation where there is high unemployment. He also used his agricultural roots to appeal to the country's farmers, saying he could turn Zambia into a food basket for the region.
In our next story, heartbroken and homeless, Algerian villagers grapple with wildfire aftermath. When Algeria's deadly wildfire tore through the forest around their villages, brothers Khalifa and Lazid Tazit could only hustle for their families out of the door and abandon their home they shared to the flames. The two men, both who have retired, and their wives and children are now among hundreds of Algerians left homeless by the country's worst fire in memory, which has burned swaths of northeast over the past week, killing dozens of people. This month, a European Union atmosphere monitor said the Mediterranean had become a wildfire hotspot as massive blazes engulfed in forests such as in Turkey, Greece, and North Africa, which are aided by a heat wave.
Now, in our next story, Côte d'Ivoire starts Ebola vaccination of frontline workers. Côte d'Ivoire has launched Ebola vaccination of high-risk populations, including health workers and first responders in Abidjan, where Ebola outbreak was declared on 14 August. The country was able to swiftly begin the vaccination on 16 August with the RVSV-ZEBOV Ebola vaccine manufactured by Merck as the vaccine doses that the World Health Organization helped secure to fight a 4-month-long outbreak in Guinea, were sent quickly to Côte d'Ivoire. The vaccine deployment from Guinea included 2,000 doses from Merck that are being used under the Ring strategy, where people who have come into contact with a confirmed Ebola patient are given the vaccine, as well as first responders and health workers. In addition, Guinea sent around 3,000 vaccine doses manufactured by Johnson & Johnson, which are to be used to boost the vaccination in areas not experiencing active transmission. The Ebola vaccine is a critical tool in the fight against the virus, and so it's a top priority to move rapidly and start protecting people at high risk of the disease, said Dr. Mashidiso Mweti, WHO Regional Director for Africa.
Uganda to take 2,000 Afghan refugees at U.S. request. Uganda said on Tuesday it had agreed to a request from the United States to take in temporarily 2,000 refugees from Afghanistan fleeing after the Taliban takeover. The East African nation has long experienced receiving people escaping conflict and currently hosts about 1.4 million refugees, most from South Sudan. The request was made yesterday by the U.S. government to President Yoweri Museveni, and he has given them an okay to bring 2,000 Afghanistan refugees to Uganda. Esther Davinia, Uganda's junior minister for relief, disaster preparedness, and refugees, told Reuters. They are going to be here temporarily for 3 months before the U.S. government resettles them elsewhere.
In our next story, Niger declares 2 days of national mourning after 37 killed. Niger has declared 48 hours of national mourning after 37 people were killed in a fresh massacre by suspected rebels. Flags will be flown at half-mast across the country with immediate effect, a government statement said on Wednesday. It reaffirmed the government's determination to pursue the fight against terrorism until the final victory, urging greater vigilance among the population. On Monday, gunmen on motorbikes launched an attack on villagers in Dare Daye as they were tending their fields. 4 women and 13 children were among the 37 people killed. The area is notorious for attacks by groups linked to Al-Qaeda and ISIL. According to a toll issued last week by Human Rights Watch, more than 420 civilians have been killed in rebel attacks in Tillaberi and the neighboring region of Taohua this year, and tens of thousands of people have fled their homes.
Dozens of migrants lost at sea off Mauritanian coast. Up to 47 people, including 3 minors, are missing and suspected to have died after their boat encountered engine trouble on the passage from Western Sahara to Spain Canary Island, the United Nations Migration Agency said on Tuesday. A boat carrying 50 people left Lornane in the Western Sahara around the 3rd of August before the engine failed, according to a testimony of 7 survivors who were picked up by the Mauritanian Coast Guard. We are working with the Mauritanian authorities to search for the bodies of those migrants who have died en route to the Canary Island, said the IOM spokesperson. The closest of the Canary Island to Africa coast lies around 100 kilometers away from Lauyane. From January the 1st to July the 31st, at least 7,531 people reached Spain Canary Island from Western Africa, according to the Spanish government figures, a 136% rise compared with the same period in 2020.
In our next story, Uganda declares polio outbreak. A public health emergency has been declared in Uganda after scientists detected polio in samples taken from 2 different sewage plants in Kampala. The country was first declared polio-free in 2016, but suffered outbreaks in 2009 and 2010. Results from Uganda's Virus Research Institute show that the strain detected is related to that first reported in Sudan. Uganda's health ministry says says it is stepping up polio surveillance across health facilities and will investigate all children under the age of 15 who may present sudden paralysis or weakness in the limbs. A mass vaccination program is scheduled for October and December this year for all children under the age of 5.
In our next story, officers in court after brothers die in police custody. Six police officers who were arrested earlier this month in connection with the deaths of two brothers have appeared in a Kenyan court on Tuesday. 19-year-old Emmanuel Mututara and Benson Juru, who's 22, died in police custody after they were arrested for being outside after the 10 p.m. curfew. Their bodies were later discovered at Embu Level 5 mortuary in central Kenya. Autopsy showed they both died from trauma injuries to their head caused by a blunt object. Their deaths caused a countrywide uproar as Kenyans blamed the justice system for their family and condemned police brutality.
Swinging back to Uganda, Uganda scraps controversial anti-pornography miniskirt law. Uganda's constitutional court is scrapping a controversial anti-pornography law whose provisions included a ban on wearing miniskirts in public in a decision hailed by women's rights campaigners. The judgment on Tuesday said that the 2014 legislation, which had been dubbed the anti-miniskirt law, was inconsistent with or in contravention of the Constitution of the Republic of Uganda. The legislation criminalized any activity deemed pornographic, from wearing short skirts to writing risque songs, and led to increased public harassment of women who wore clothing considered too revealing. Women's rights activists welcomed the verdict, which followed street protests by campaigners calling for the legislation to be dropped. The petitioners said the legislation encouraged the harassment and mistreatment of women in public and denied them control over their bodies as well as access to public spaces.
In our next story, UK-based preacher charged over fake COVID-19 cure. A Kenyan preacher based in the UK has been charged in court for selling what he called a COVID-19 remedy. Bishop Clement Wiseman sold a bottle of a mixture of oils at $125. He was charged in a London court with fraud and unfair trading offenses, which he pleaded not guilty to. Master Wiseman made videos that circulated online claiming the oils were a cure for COVID-19. There is no cure for COVID-19, and that is according to the World Health Organization. Master Wiseman runs the Bishop Climate Ministry, which is part of a Kingdom Church located in South London.
In the last of our top stories, eco-friendly vehicles offer quieter, cleaner safaris in Kenyan Reserve. In Kenya's Masai Mara National Reserve, the Toyota 4x4 Land Cruiser of tour guide and driver Sylvester Mukenye glides silently past a herd of grazing elephants, then past a pride of lions lying in the grass. If you drive here silently, you will of course get much closer to animals, especially the elephants that we're next to right now, because there are no vibrations on the ground and there are no fumes that they get the smell from like in other cars, Mukenye said. His vehicle was converted by Opibus, a Nairobi-based Kenyan-Swedish company founded in 2017. It is, for now, the only company in Kenya that converts off-road safari vehicles from diesel and petrol to electric power. Wanjiru Kamau, an electrical engineer at Opibus, said the company had so far converted 10 vehicles used in Kenyan game parks, including 3 in the Masai Mara. As well as being more environmentally friendly than diesel engines, the electric motors cut operating costs by half, she added. Wow, I definitely want one of those. You guys in Kenya, have a look at Etosha Game Park. Let me know when you fix that. You know, you get closer to the animals if you're quieter.
Yeah.
It makes you miss tourism. It really makes you miss tourism. And hopefully you are all supporting the local tourist industries in your respective countries. This is Still Africa. Good morning, bringing you the news as you need it. After the break, we're going to be talking about the Special Olympics. Stick around. Now, the Olympics are behind us, and worldwide athletes with special needs are preparing for the event taking place in 2023. Jeffrey Verna and Emilia Nzuzi of the Special Olympics Committee talk about what is needed to make sure that the athletes have a workable facility. Have a look.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. But now there's something else coming up, and that's the Special Olympics. Can you just quickly tell us more about that? Are there Namibians participating, and what's the timeline now?
Okay, thank you so much. I must say, from Special Olympics Namibia side, we extremely proud of what transpired at the Tokyo Olympics. I mean, I think a lot of young Namibians don't really know what that means to achieve a medal at the Olympics. That is actually reigniting dreams of youngsters. So now they don't have to dream about Usain Bolts and all those other. They can actually dream about local heroes. And with Special Olympics, we try and encourage our athletes to participate in many different sports so that we can find these young talents. And we actually have the World Summer Games that's upcoming in 2023 in Berlin, Germany. And at the moment, we actually have 2 cyclists that will be participating, and then also 2 athletes, as well as a basketball team, 3-a-side and 5-a-side. So we're looking forward to that. It's still we still have about 2 years, so we have enough time to prepare for them to actually go not just participate, but actually compete in the games. I think a lot of motivation has been taken from the results that we've gotten from Tokyo, and a lot of young athletes actually now can actually imagine themselves also achieving those type of medals and those goals that is now set for them. And we also have another competition next year in Canada. It is it's a unified competition for soccer, and we are working hard to getting a team ready to actually go participate in that competition as well. I think it's very important that as for young Namibians to actually get that exposure, to go travel the world and actually see how it feels, and to believe in themselves and believe that they can actually achieve, not just locally, but abroad as well.
The thing with sports, especially worldwide, there's a lot of pressure on these athletes. And we just went to the center, the Special Olympics Center in Katatura, and unfortunately, it's falling apart. And us as Namibians, if we expect our athletes to participate and to bring home medals, we need to be able to give them facilities to actually practice. What are your plans to open up the center again?
Just like the sport director mentioned about the excitement about the Olympics and so on, for them to win those gold medals, they need preparation. They need a good sport facility where they can able to exercise, train, and so on. Unfortunately, with Special Olympics, our center had been vandalized, and people also started now stealing things from the center and the sport field itself, which is really make it very difficult for the safety of our athletes as well. Just to mention that the center was actually there is an agreement between the Ministry of Youth and as well the World Street for Football and Special Olympics. Initially, it was not allowed to be fenced because the concept was to open to the community. However, the community, they didn't recognize the benefit of just moving in, come to the facility and just have fun and all participate in sport. They started vandalizing the premises, stealing stuff and so on. Currently it's not in use, it's not suitable to be used. And at a point, staff member, when they have to go to the place in the past, people robbed their cell phone, they are also robbed their laptop and so on, which it becomes so scary and unsafe for the people. What we are currently doing is that we want the center to come back to normal. We are trying to look for sponsorship to be able to renovate the center so that we can able to start preparing our athletes for the Olympics, which will be in 2023, and also for the unified sport, which is in 2022. It looked like it's a lot, it's still some years, but time flies. It will end up just being already 2023, and the athletes are not prepared and so on. That's why we're really humble requesting that whoever that is having a heart to support our athletes. And mind these athletes are people with intellectual disabilities, and these opportunities, when they hear that they're going to participate in the world game, they're so excited. And if we are not train them and prepare them, then we are not going to win the medals, which we don't want. We really wanted to bring our medals for them also to be feel proud and so on, by seeing the young girls what they bring back home. And it's always good because Namibia had been known in the past with Special Olympics, they always bring gold medals at home. And we don't wanted this opportunity again to go away. That's why I wanted really for Samaritan to helping us to have this center to be fixed, and we can able to operate again and being functional.
Thank you so much for your time, and good luck with this mammoth task you have, and good luck for all your athletes.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Welcome back to Africa Good Morning. Now our favorite correspondent, Talent Gore, all the way in the House of Stone, is joining us to bring us the news making headlines in Zimbabwe. Good morning, Talent. How are you?
Good morning, Aina. I'm great. How are you doing?
I am fantastic. Please talk to us about the Zimbabwe and British firms that signed an accord to build a 1.3 billion fuel pipeline.
The Zimbabwean government, through the National Oil Company of Zimbabwe, has entered into a joint venture with the British-based Cavern Energy Limited to kickstart the construction of a 1.3 billion US dollar pipeline from Beira, Mozambique to Harare. The partnership is meant to last for up to 30 years, but the project is said to begin next year, will go for 4 years. According to the Minister of Information, Monica Mchangwa, the pipeline will be built over 4 years and the partnership will be for a period of 30 years. The project will also see the National Oil Company of Zimbabwe and the Cavern Energy entering into a 50-50 public-private partnership, is meant to establish the Zimbabwe as the hub for the transportation of refined petroleum products to the countries in the SADC region, mainly Zimbabwe, Botswana, and South Africa. She also said that as part of the long term, the pipeline is set to connect other countries, which are Zimbabwe, Malawi, South Africa, and the Democratic Republic of Congo. The government also said that the construction of the pipeline will bring about employment opportunities and also foreign currency in the country. It will also bring about foreign currency into the country, and it will also stop the smuggling of petroleum products from other countries into the country, and also from Zimbabwe to other countries. So the government says that action will begin soon. Probably it will kickstart next year.
All right, Talent. Now, in your second story, private companies access vaccines directly from the government for the inoculation of their employees. Could you please get into this?
Well, in a bid to speed up the vaccination campaign, the Zimbabwean government has said that private companies can now access vaccines from the Ministry of Health and Childcare upon paying a certain fee at the ministry. They say that those companies who wish to inoculate their employees can now access vaccines from the Ministry of Health, but they should pay a certain fee. The government has also said that private clinics, and when the vaccination campaign started early this year, only public hospitals and public clinics were allowed to vaccinate people. But the government has since says that private hospitals and private clinics can now access vaccines, and they can now participate in the inoculation of the public, but the public have to pay a certain fee for them to be inoculated. So they say that for companies to kickstart, or for companies to now operate fully at full capacity, they now require them to access vaccines for the inoculation of their employees. At the moment, companies, they are only operating at 40% workforce capacity, and if they want to operate at 100%, they are told to vaccinate all their employees, and also if they can access vaccines at a certain fee for them to inoculate their employees.
All right, now the Teachers Union has called on the Zimbabwe Examination Council to defer its June and November 2021 public examination. Please tell us more.
Teachers' unions have called upon the Zimbabwe Examination Council to defer the June and November 2021 examinations, citing that students and children did not learn much this year, as schools were closed for the better part of last year and this year. Schools have since been closed since June, and they haven't opened, and the government has said that they are anticipating that they open end of this month. But Teachers' Union have said that they can't open schools and just tell students and pupils to go and write their public examinations, as they have not learned much. As they have not learned much, they need to at least first teachers need to at least teach the students first for the greater part of this year and next year, and they can write probably in early next year. So they've said that the Zimbabwe Examination Council should at least defer the June and November 2021 examinations to early next year, so that students can at least prepare for the examinations. And that they're saying that they should at least have in-person lessons with the teachers, so that they can be able and they can be well prepared for them to write the examinations. So the ZIMSEC hasn't said anything as yet. They haven't responded to these calls. So yeah, that is all on that issue.
What an interesting proposal. We'll certainly be looking forward to your updates on that story. Thank you very much, Talent, for bringing us the news from Zimbabwe.
You're welcome, and thank you very much for having me.
It's always good to have you here. This is still Africa Good Morning, and we're hoping for a good day. And one way that we may have a good day is if we have good weather. But that's not something we can guarantee. We can only observe that in the weather forecast. Up next. As we said at the beginning of the show, today is World Humanitarian Day. Now, Miss Natalie Russman, the director of the Konrad Adenauer Stiftung overseeing Namibia and Angola, spoke to Chanel Bennett to explain how they support various communities in relation to World Humanitarian Day. Have a look.
Do you have any messages that you want to tell our nation, like from your firm's point of view? Something you want to say celebrating this day?
Yes, I just want to give you a short message regarding the Humanitarian Day. Well, this year's Humanitarian Day highlights the human cost arising from the climate crisis. Namibia is on the front line of this worldwide threat to humanity, and having already started to experience severe droughts and flooding within the last years, many people have been left without access to enough food, as just to mention one consequence of this climate crisis, and probably painting a worrying picture for the decades to come. Nevertheless, the Humanitarian Day shall also serve as an occasion to remember the power that people have in helping others when they come together. Whilst it might be difficult there, it is still a hope if all Namibian works towards adapting for the future crisis. Well, the Konrad Adenauer Stiftung, through its ongoing efforts and networks, together with its partners and stakeholders, continues worldwide to promote human rights, justice, solidarity, good governance, peace, equality, and sustainability. So this is our contribution as Konrad Adenauer Foundation to this specific day. But as I said, we should always remember this day, not only on this specific day, but throughout the year, while the challenging to the society is huge, especially now with the COVID pandemic and the impact on poverty and reduce of economic power. So there are a lot of challenge to face regarding also the climate changes that happens and that affecting the rural areas mainly. So this will be our contribution within our activities, and also to continue networking together in order to shape a better Namibia.
Happy Thursday, and thank you very much for joining us. Now, a lot of people have been asking, if you are fully vaccinated, can you still get COVID-19? How frequent are breakthrough infections, and what does COVID-19 look like if you are fully vaccinated? Now, WHO's Dr. Kate O'Brien explains all of this in Science in 5.
If you've been fully vaccinated, can you still get COVID-19? We're going to talk about breakthrough infections with Dr. Catherine O'Brien today. Hello and welcome to Science in 5. I'm Vismita Gupta-Smith. Welcome, Kate. My first question to you is, please explain breakthrough infections. How come people can still get COVID-19 even when they're fully vaccinated?
The vaccines that we have against COVID are incredibly effective vaccines. And people have seen the results from the clinical trials of, in anywhere in the 80% range, 90% range of efficacy. But that doesn't mean that 100% of people 100% of the time are going to be protected against disease. There is no vaccine that provides that level of protection for any disease. So we do expect in any vaccine program that there will be rare, but there will be cases of disease among people who were fully vaccinated, and certainly among some people who were partially vaccinated. This doesn't mean that the vaccines aren't working. It doesn't mean that there's something wrong with the vaccines. What it does mean is that not everybody who receives vaccines has 100% protection. What we do want to really emphasize for people is that it's so important to get vaccinated because these vaccines are really effective, and it gives you a really good chance of not developing disease.
Kate, how frequent are breakthrough infections? And if you are fully vaccinated but happen to catch COVID-19, what does that look like?
So we're learning a couple things about breakthrough infections, Vismita. The first is that the degree of severity of disease among people who have a breakthrough infection is less severe than the severity of disease among people who aren't vaccinated. So vaccines are operating in a couple of different ways. First, of course, they're preventing people from getting disease at all. And even when disease does occur among a person, people who are fully vaccinated, the severity of that disease is less. The second question is about how often we're actually seeing breakthrough infections. We're monitoring this really carefully, and there's a couple things I want to say about breakthrough infections. The first is that they are uncommon, and so this is not something that's happening in an unexpected way. But they don't happen equally among all different kinds of people. People who are at increased risk of disease, so people with frail immune systems, people who are in older age groups, they have a greater risk of having breakthrough disease than other people. So it's not an equal risk of breakthrough disease. The second point here is that we're seeing more cases of breakthrough disease in part because people are stopping the other interventions that reduce the transmission of this virus. So when the virus starts to transmit at a greater and greater pace and with greater frequency, there's a lot more exposure that everybody has, including people who are vaccinated.
So Kate, people may be wondering if they can still catch COVID-19 even after being fully vaccinated, and if they can still infect others, then why vaccinate?
So this is a question that lots of people are asking, and I really want to emphasize that vaccines do a number of different things to protect you and to protect others. So we've already talked about how the main function of vaccines is to protect you against getting disease. We've also talked about the fact that if you were to get disease, a rare event among vaccinated people, but it does occur, that your disease will be less severe than it would have been if you weren't vaccinated. And the third thing that vaccines do is they reduce the transmission of the infection of the virus from one person to the next. And the way that vaccines do that is in a number of different ways. The first is they can protect you against getting infected at all. The second way that they work is if you become infected, you're actually shedding that virus for a shorter period of time than if you weren't vaccinated. And the third way that vaccines work is, again, if you happen to get infected, the amount of virus that you have in your nose, in the back of your throat, that you're shedding and potentially transmitting to somebody is less of the virus. There's less density of the virus in you, and so less risk that you transmit it to somebody else. And what is so critical is interrupting transmission of this virus has to be vaccines and. It has to be vaccines and all the other things that we're doing, especially while people are still in the process of getting vaccinated. So now really isn't the time for us to reduce those other interventions while we're living in communities that don't have substantial vaccination yet.
Thank you, Kate. That was Science in 5 today. Until next time then, stay safe, stay healthy, and stick with science.
Welcome back to Africa Good Morning. It's time for us to get into your economic news stories for the day. And we start off in South Africa. At least 170 million rand paid in Marikana reparations. Since August 2018, government has paid out at least 170 million rand in damages to families of those who lost loved ones and those who were injured during the 2012 Marikana tragedy. This is according to Solicitor General Fezizane Pandelani, who provided an update on the Marikana reparations that government is undertaking. Pandelani says government has been negotiating with and compensating families through 5 legal representatives for claims for loss of support, emotional shock and suffering, unlawful arrests and detentions, and personal injuries. The Solicitor General added that as well as these payments, government offered to pay further general and constitutional damages to the families, amounting to at least 80 million rand overall, which Socio-Economic Rights Institute rejected. General and constitutional damages is not something that is easy to quantify, but we needed to be reasonable under the circumstances and to the extent necessary. We believe as the state that we needed to approach this matter with some degree of humanity. The claims for general and constitutional damages is now expected to go before court.
In our next story, Nigeria's inflation rate falls slightly in July. Nigeria's inflation rate fell slightly to 17.38% in July, down from the 17.75% recorded in June, according to the data released on Tuesday. This fall between both months was 0.7%, the NBS said in its report. The inflation rate has been on a steady decline for 4 consecutive months since April. The composite food index rose to 21.03% in July compared to 21.83% in June, implying that food prices continued to rise in the month under review, but at a slower speed than in June, the Statistic Office indicated.
Staying with Nigeria, Nigeria's Buhari signs historic oil overhaul bill into law. Nigerian President Muhammadu Buhari signed into law an oil overhaul bill that has been in the works for nearly 2 decades, a presidential spokesman said on Monday. The package overhauls nearly every aspect of the country's oil and gas production. The legislature cleared it for his signature last month. The bill has been in the works since the early 2000s, but the sensitivity of potential changes affecting Nigeria's key source of revenue and foreign exchange has undermined all previous attempts at an overhaul. Major fuel marketers and other observers had been alarmed by a provision that they said could give Africa's richest man, Aliko Dangote, an effective monopoly on fuel sales in Nigeria, while the communities where oil and gas is produced had pressed for a larger share of oil money.
In our next story, ABSA and AREP join forces for renewable energy financing. ABSA Bank, a major player in the financing of the energy sector in South Africa, has joined forces with Africa Rainbow Energy and Power to launch a new platform dedicated to financing renewable energy. The African Rainbow Energy Platform is a result of a joint venture between ABSA Bank and a subsidiary of ABSA Group and African Rainbow Energy and Power. The aim of this joint venture is to invest massively in the very dynamic renewable energy sector in South Africa. According to the agreement signed between the two partners, AREP will make an initial investment of assets covering wind, solar and biomass projects with an installed capacity of over 700 MW.
Now, in the last of our economic news stories, Petra Diamonds to restart mining operations in Tanzania. Petra Diamonds is set to restart operations of the Williamson mine at Mwadui in Shinyanga in the first quarter of 2022 after the company agreed to spend $1.3 million in community programs. Chief Executive Mr. Richard Duffy said plans are being refined to allow WDL's operations to restart in the first quarter of 2022 to add 220,000 to 270,000 carats of diamonds to the group's production for the year. Last year, Petra reached an out-of-court settlement with hit local communities after being sued in London for violation of human rights. On 12 May 2021, Petra announced it had reached a settlement on a no admission of liability basis in relation to claims brought in High Court in London by British law firm weekday on behalf of anonymous claimants. All right, that brings us to the end of our economic news stories. You know what comes up next? Economic indicators. Welcome back to Africa Good Morning. It's time for us to get into your sports news stories for the day. And in our first story, Africa Cup of Nations, draw made for delayed 2021 event in Cameroon. Holders Algeria have drawn former winners Ivory Coast in the group stage of the delayed 2021 Africa Cup of Nations in Cameroon next year. Nigeria, three-time winners of the competition, have a tough test in Group D, where they will face Mohamed Salah's Egypt, Sudan, and Guinea-Bissau. Sadio Mane's Senegal, who suffered the heartbreak of losing the 2019 final to Algeria, will take on Zimbabwe, Guinea, and Malawi in Group B. Hosts Cameroon, seeking a sixth title, were put in Group A with Ethiopia, Cape Verde, and Burkina Faso, who they will face in the opening match in Yaoundé. Two stadiums in Yaoundé, plus newly built or refurbished venues in Bafoussam, Douala, Garoua, and Limbe, will be used in the tournament. The 2021 Nations Cup had to be postponed twice due to wet weather concerns and COVID-19, and even the draw, originally set for June, was delayed by the pandemic.
In our next story, the First Lady Margaret Kenyatta opens World Under-20 Championships at Kasarani. The First Lady Margaret Kenyatta Tuesday presided over a colorful opening ceremony of the 2021 World Athletics Under-20 Championships at the Moi International Sports Center, Kasarani in Nairobi. The First Lady, who is a patron for the global event, said that holding the World Under-20 event is a milestone for Africa and hopes more events will be held in Kenya. She also said that athletes competing in such events will be able to pursue their dreams not only in sport but also academically.
All right, in our next story, Museveni gives Olympic medalists cars and houses for parents. The long-awaited rewards for Olympic medalists from Uganda came in the form of brand new Mitsubishi Pajeros handed out by President Yoweri Museveni on Wednesday at Kololo Independence Grounds. The handover was the climax of the state reception hosted by the president to thank the 25-man team that won 4 medals, 2 gold, silver, and bronze at the Tokyo 2020 Olympics. I am a happy man now. You know, happy men can be generous. I will give each one of them a vehicle, he said to end his speech, which was dominated by the history of sports here. Then finally, I will build houses for the parents of these gold medal people, added Museveni. This is what I have always wanted. Beaming with a smile, Kiplimo said later as the sun set. This is now going to encourage us to work harder and bring more medals, added the world half marathon champion. 4 medals from Tokyo marked Uganda's best ever show at the Olympics, and the country tied 36th with Greece on the medal table.
Wow.
Nice.
Well, in our next story, Japanese Grand Prix cancelled for second year over the virus. The Japanese Grand Prix has been cancelled for a second year over virus complexities, Formula One said on Wednesday. The race was due to take place at Suzuka on the 10th of October, but F1 said the Japanese government had pulled the plug due to the country's pandemic situation. Japan is currently battling record coronavirus infections, with Tokyo and other regions under the state of emergency.
Now, our last story is a sad one as Gary Player's wife, Vivian, dies after battle with cancer. The wife of Gary Player, Vivian Player, has died after battling pancreatic cancer. Vivian was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer in June last year and had been making progress in her recovery. The couple married in 1957 and celebrated their 64th wedding anniversary in January this year. Childhood sweethearts, Player first asked Vivian to marry him when he was 15. Player has often attributed much of his success on the course. He has won 167 tournaments worldwide, including 9 majors, to the support he received from his wife. Together, the couple had 6 children: Jennifer, Mark, Wayne, Michelle, Teresa, and Amanda. They have 22 grandchildren and 2 great-grandchildren. During the early part of Player's career, he would travel to tournaments with Vivian and their 6 children, a nanny and a tutor. Player is South Africa's most successful sportsman ever and was known as a pioneer of physical fitness training routines for professional golfers. He is known as Mr. Fitness as well as the Black Knight. Truly saddening news. This is Still Africa. Good morning. After the break, we'll be back with your headlines.
The rest of my program.
Africa Good Morning has been streaming live from 7 a.m., bringing you the news you need to know happening in the SADC region and beyond. Now, if you missed our top stories at the top of the hour, or if you need a recap, worry not, your headlines are up next. SADC summit begins in Malawi with concerns over COVID-19 vaccine hoarding. Hakainde Hichilema, the Zambian cattle boy who became president. Heartbroken and homeless, Algerian villagers grapple with wildfire aftermath. Côte d'Ivoire starts Ebola vaccination of frontline workers. South Africa, at least 170 million rand paid in Marikana reparations. Africa Cup of Nations, draw made for delayed 2021 event in Cameroon. Those have been our stories.
Thank you very much for joining us on this edition of Africa Good Morning. Now, yesterday I visited an amazing website. It's called 1up2, where I caught up with all my favorite shows such as Africa Good Morning and Immediate One, and even the Late Night Review. You definitely need to visit that website for more content that you love to see. Now, we do welcome your remarks regarding our show. Our email is agm_2centsworth@nmh.com.na. Alternatively, you can engage us on Facebook and Twitter. It's at Africa Good Morning. Do not forget to get vaccinated, wear your mask at all times, and avoid unnecessary public gatherings. And on that note, we'll see you again tomorrow, same time, same place.
Swera zvakanaka.